Rogue Record.
What's up, everybody? You're listening to Hustle Makes It Happen, a podcast about the grit, the determination, and the mindset that it takes to become a winner. Success is not an accident. It lives outside your comfort zone, in the trenches, where excuses are met by brick walls. So strap in, tighten up, and let's get ready to hustle. What's up, hustlers? Welcome back to another episode of Hustle Makes It Happen, the podcast. Look, you guys know the deal. We're going to continue to bring you great content, but we need your help. And you guys have done an awesome job up to this point helping us out. We love and appreciate all the support we've received over the last 2 seasons. We're going to keep trucking along with this thing for as long as you guys want to continue to hear from us. So thank you first and foremost. Look, if you're a new listener, we want you to continue to come back and get some content from us and tell a friend. Those are the 2 requirements for new listeners. Keep coming back, tell some friends. If you're a long-term listener, you've been listening to the channel for a little while, we want to ask you to make sure you go on YouTube, you subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell icon to get notifications whenever we drop new content, and please take a couple of minutes out of your time and help us out. Go on Apple or Spotify, drop us a 5-star review, leave some comments, tell us what you love about the show, tell us the things you don't love so much about the show, and we'll take that feedback into consideration moving forward. That's the podcast plug. Today, I think we got a good one for you.
Yep. Yeah, so I've been looking forward to this one for a little while. You know, schedules are always so hectic to meet up. So I personally know this gentleman. He's got a strong hold in a place in my life because of my daughter. So, and I know his work ethic. I've seen it. So without further ado, we have Mr. Matt Bruce in the house today. Welcome, sir.
Appreciate it, guys. Glad to be here.
Yeah, man, it's great to have you on. So, Chase has told me a lot about you over the last couple of months. I mean, we've been, I think, trying to link up for probably 2 months. You were actually one of the first people, whenever we started the idea for the podcast, we were on a turnaround at Exxon in January of last year. Yeah, January of last year, and we were punching in all our notes about what we wanted the show to be like and kind of the premise of everything. And then we started making like a little hit list of people we wanted to get. And you were on that original list from January of last year. So a long time in the works getting you in here, man. So we definitely appreciate you carving out some time to come spend with us.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Yeah, so Matt, if you just want to give a little rundown to our guests, just a little bit about your background, who you are as a person, just and then we'll kind of dive into the mindset of Mr. Matt Bruce.
For sure. Originally from New Orleans, grew up in New Orleans, came up to Baton Rouge to go to high school. Early on, went to Catholic high school here in Baton Rouge. Early on in the 8th grade, the coaches noticed I was pretty strong for my age, so they referred me to a Coach Gayle Hatch here in Baton Rouge. Started training with Coach Hatch in the 8th grade and kind of fell in love with the sport of Olympic weightlifting, which is snatch and clean and jerk. And throughout a 17-year career as an Olympic weightlifter, I made 8 world teams, 2 Olympic teams. I was the alternate in 2008 and 2012 Olympic teams. Since retiring in 2012 from the Olympics, I started a company, Brute Strength, which we're primarily in the sport of CrossFit. We do online strength and conditioning for the sport of CrossFit. I'm currently the head strength coach at Catholic High School here in Baton Rouge, and then in the process of launching a brand new company called the Moffitt Method, which will do online strength and conditioning for high schools and small colleges.
Yeah, I love it. So this whole journey's been literally a lifetime in the works for you. I mean, you started, what'd you say, in 8th grade?
Yep.
So 14, 15 years old?
In the 8th grade, and like I said, just fell in love with the sport. Didn't play any other sports through high school. By the time I was a sophomore in high school, I had made my first international team and kind of, fell into that sport for, like I said, a 17-year career.
Yeah, that's insane. We talk a lot on this show about people finding one of 2 things, either something they're really, really good at or something they're really, really passionate about. And the people I think that are most successful are the ones that marry those 2 up. And that's what you've done, right? But you didn't just stop at the Olympic weightlifting. I mean, you took it as far as anybody can really dream to go, realistically. I mean, all the way to the Olympics, which is a huge feat in itself, and that requires a ton of hard work. But after retiring from that, you found a way to take those skills and transfer them out to other people in the world, right?
What's funny is my coach was adamant that weightlifting wouldn't make me who I am. And so after the 2008 Olympics, I had just finished my bachelor's degree at LSU, and I was working at Home Depot. They had this program, if you're an Olympian, where you work basically half a week's worth of work, but they paid you for the full week. And I remember my coach pulls me into the office, and he said, what's next for you? I said, well, Coach, we're going another quad, which is 4 years. He said, okay, great. He's like, well, what are you going to do in the meantime to better yourself? And I was like, well, what do you mean, Coach? And he told me bluntly, and I'm at the peak of my career at this point. He said, Matt, I will not train you unless you're furthering yourself as an adult. He said, weightlifting won't be here your whole life. And if you spend the next 4 years only doing weightlifting and not bettering yourself, he said, I'd rather not coach you. And I was like, man, it like hit me pretty hard. And he was dead serious. He was a very military style coach. So I knew he was extremely serious when he said this. So I ended up going at that time and getting my master's degree only because he wouldn't train me unless I was doing or bettering myself. So I ended up getting a master's degree, ended up becoming a full-time teacher during that period. I got hired out in Central in 2008, became a full-time teacher during that time too, because like I said, he refused to train me for the next quadrant unless I was bettering myself, because he knew after weightlifting, he didn't want that to define me. And I didn't really realize what that meant until after I retired. When I retired, typically you retire at the end of a quadrant, right? At the end of the 4 years, because once you make world teams and whatnot, the only thing that there really is left to do is make the Olympics. So to me, I would only train for another 4 years. Well, so when I retired, and most of the people that were my age who should be retiring, everybody else didn't retire. They stayed in the sport and slowly died out in the sport. And some of them are still lifting today, like late 30s, early 40s, trying to chase this dream because they created this image that that's all they are, that they're a weightlifter, and they can't ever give it up. And it's really sad to see them kind of die slowly in the sport and not improve anymore. And that's when it hit me what Coach really meant by don't let weightlifting define who you are. Because I've seen a lot of my competition that are still trying to hold on to this I'm an athlete mentality, look at me, look what I can do, while Coach really pushed me to be something more than just a weightlifter.
Dude, that is insanely valuable, and I think is something that's missing from a lot of coaches in a lot of sports, maybe especially today in the sports environment today, is that coaches are so it seems like a lot of coaches are more concerned about winning the game and having the best athletes, but they're not putting a lot of focus into teaching, coaching, and mentoring. I think those three things go hand in hand. Like if you're a good coach, you're also a really good mentor, and you're also a really good teacher. And it seems like Coach Hatch was all three of those things for you.
So I've had the privilege to obviously see his mindset transfer some to my daughter at a young age. But also with that, another Gayle Hatch, I'm not going to say prodigy, but just, understudy was who Matt sent me and Bryn to next. Mm-hmm. And to see the similarities that her Coach Will is Guillermo, he has very similar qualities as Matt does mentally. Obviously came from the same cloth of Gayle Hatch. And, because he always talks Guillermo always talks about he wants his weightlifters to be learning valuable life lessons to bring forward. And that's the same thing Matt's talking about. But it's funny because they came from the same camp, which is pretty awesome. That's an invaluable lesson that some people just don't have that in them to be putting that forward at the forefront at least.
Yeah, well, that's that mentorship conversation that we have in this room all the time. You know what I mean? It's extraordinarily important for anybody, but especially for young people that are in their late high school to early college age. I think that's when mentorship is probably the most important. It has the most impact on your life between the ages of 15 and 20. And I mean, we encourage people all the time to go seek out a mentor that is guiding you on the right path in life. And if it's something that you're passionate in, you continue to do that. But in the sports world, anyway, you have to understand that there's more to life than sports. And I think we see this a lot with football players and baseball players. I know a couple of guys that played minor league, but played all the way up to the minor leagues in baseball, but all they did was baseball. That is it. And They play in the minors for 4 or 5 years. They don't get picked up to the majors, and they're done. I mean, they go home. They have no real skills. They have no valuable, life lessons that they've learned other than how to play baseball. And when baseball gets ripped out from underneath them, it's over. Justin Vincent talked about that, if you remember in his episode, way back at the beginning of season 1. He talked about he had trained his whole life to go to the NFL. He gets cut after a couple of seasons in the NFL, and he's sitting on his mom's couch wondering what he's going to do with the rest of his life. Now, fortunately, he had the right mindset to go back out and go to work, and has ended up doing really well at LSU. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
He went back to college.
Yeah, but it's really cool that Coach Hatch was kind of pushing you in that direction while you were still doing.
When you said you weren't in any sports previous to that. So I know you have a close relationship with your dad. I mean, we've talked about that a lot in life. Were that hard work ethic instilled younger in your life? Because I always like to ask, where are those little nuggets implanted? Some, I'll be honest, mine weren't implanted young. Mine grew over my years. So I like to ask that for somebody that's been kind of digging at it for a long time.
I would say it really grew during my time with Coach Hatch. Once I started there in the 8th grade, now keep in mind, I'm young. I'm only 13 years old, still malleable. And just walking into that facility, and he had created a culture in there, and it was a culture that had started back in the 70s and the 80s. And so I walk into that culture, and I see how people are acting. And like you said, with Guillermo, Coach Hatch had a certain culture within that gym, which was working hard, and if you work the hardest, you will be successful. And I think that's when that really kind of cultivated within me was really through Coach, because Coach essentially became my dad at that point, because both my parents moved up here when I was in the 8th grade. Then my parents split when I was a sophomore, and in actuality, I moved in with a foster family my sophomore year of high school. And so when that happened, Coach Hatch would keep me at the gym, and would make me do all my homework there after I finished lifting. So I'd go straight there from school. I'd get there at about 3 o'clock, and then I'd lift till about 5:30 or so, and then he would make me sit there on the bench and finish my homework till about 7:30 or around the time that he was going to leave. And then I was allowed to go home. And at that point, all I had left to do was just go home, eat, and sleep, because there was not much more time left in the day. So I would say during that time, he kind of became my role model, dad kind of figure, and I kind of clung on to that, and I think that's what really created that work ethic for me.
Hey, y'all, if you're in the market for a real estate attorney that can handle all your title work needs, all your closing needs, all your succession needs, whatever your needs are in the real estate industry, look no further than our friends Shay Landry and the group at Milestone Title. Y'all, we use these guys for our personal business, and they have never let us down. They've been on top of the game every time we've used them. So whatever it is that you're looking for in the real estate industry, as far as a closing attorney or title work is concerned, check out our friends over at Milestone Title. Milestone Title, a proud sponsor of Hustle Makes It Happen, the podcast.
Nick Torito at Area Home Lending, Louisiana's top choice for mortgages. If you're looking to buy, build, or refinance, they have you covered. Don't get fooled by one of those online or out-of-state banks. Nick and Area Home Lending are Louisiana-based and lend in all of Louisiana. From Lake Charles to Lafayette or all of Baton Rouge to New Orleans. If it's in the state, Nick and his team are local experts and ready to help. Your home is one of the biggest decisions and investments you will make in your life. With trust, commitment, and care, Nick will walk you through the process, step by step, making the hardest decision easy and ensuring the process is as simple and painless as possible. And with Nick, you'll find out that you're not only just another transaction or number on the list. He's invested in you, and you become family with his goal to create a relationship that will always be there. Area Home Lending has access to the best loan programs too, and with the lowest rate and fees, all while delivering exceptional customer service. Please give him a call today at 225-663-2500 or visit him on the web at www.areahomelending.com. I guarantee you, he will take great care of you. Nick Torito and Area Home Lending, a proud sponsor of Hustle Makes It Happen, the podcast.
I'm curious about this because you've shifted from having this awesome tutelage under Coach Hatch. You've got this work ethic instilled in you. And now in your position as the athletic director at Catholic High, how do you translate those lessons? Or what do you try to do to translate those lessons to the next generation of students?
Yeah, so I'm the strength coach at Catholic High, not the athletic director.
I'm sorry.
Athletic director would be the guy who's over all sports, making decisions, setting schedules, stuff like that. So as a strength coach, what I do is I implement and oversee all the workouts on campus for all sports, football, baseball, basketball, and whatnot. And I think what I learned from Coach, when I first started coaching, I thought I had to be Coach Hatch because that's all I knew. So I tried to emulate him to the T. And like I said, Coach Hatch was a very military style kind of coach. Nobody was allowed to talk in the gym. No music was allowed to be played in the gym. So in all honesty, when I first became a coach, I was that style of coach. And then I realized real quickly that that really wasn't me. And I shouldn't let that define the type of coach that I want to be. So over time, I've evolved into my own style of coach, but keeping the same ideals that he instilled in us. And how do I deliver that to the kids? I think if the kids know that you love them, they will work their butt off for you. They'll do anything that you ask them to. If they believe in you 100%, if you have to gain their trust, and if they know that you love them, they'll walk through a brick wall for you. And that's really the art of coaching. You can have two different programs, right? And coaches will argue whose program, quote unquote, is better. When I say program, like the X's and O's and building out the workouts for the kids. But when it comes down to it, as long as those kids have 100% confidence in what they're doing with you, and they believe that the program that they're on is the best program in the world, even though it may not be, but if they have that confidence and believe in it, then your program will be successful. And the way I do that is again, with some of the things that Coach Hatch always instilled with me. He always said, you have to stay in the eye of the storm. And what that means is I'm always out there circling the platforms. I'm never sitting in my office. I never put a workout on the board and just go sit in my office, right? Those guys see me out there grinding just as hard as they are with the weights. I'm grinding just as hard as a coach to them, right? And vice versa, they're going to return that same work ethic that they see me putting into them. They see me there an hour before practice setting everything up. They see me, setting up the workouts on the board perfectly so that, it's visible and all the little small things. They recognize these things that I do for them, and then therefore I feel like they go to bat for me because they know that I do this out of love for them.
There's like 4 lessons packed into that little minute and a half that you just spent talking that I want to unpack a little bit. So the first one you talked about was loving on them. That is, I think in your line of work, around building trust, right? So we talk about building teams a lot. We talk about to be successful, you got to have a good team around you, and to build good teams, you have to have trust, right? So you're showing these kids that you care about them and getting them to trust you. The second thing was attention to detail. So you talked about how you write the workouts up on the board and you get everything set up perfectly. The next one was about leading by example. You talked about those kids seeing you putting in the work and not just difference in a boss and a leader. You ever seen the little thing where the boss is up on the chair pointing and the leader's down on the ground pulling? I love that little illustration. But you're leading by example. You're showing the kids like you have to put in the work if you want the results. And then the last one was just being involved and like having your hands in everything at one time. I always try to like pick out the lessons that relate back to hustle and that are universal. And those are, just in that little minute that you spent talking, that was 4 lessons that you unpacked right there.
I hope y'all got your notepad out on the other end.
I know, man. It's insane. We got to like picking them out.
Whenever we talked about kind of the journey, kind of looking from afar, you walk in, you talked about walking into a culture and an environment. I would say maybe a little overwhelming as a 14-year-old. And then with that, depending upon, I'm not saying yours is, but where your ego's at in life, because look, we're all full of piss and vinegar when we're that age. We're like invincible, and we're the strongest and we're the best. That had to unpack for you one some failures, some moments of like popping the balloon, like you're not as good as you think you are. So how did Coach Hatch, and how did your mindset evolve in those early years to think, and like, because taking it as fuel or fire and kind of learning, like, what are some of the, like, maybe a couple instances of like some learnings that you had in the beginning of finding your hard work ethic?
So one thing Coach Hatch had was he called it the Hatch leaderboard. And the only way that you can get a Hatch leader shirt is if you were first on this board, right? And it was a big deal if you can get that shirt. It was one of those little tokens that meant something really big, right? So we were all battled to try to get to that shirt. And there was a time where I had won the junior nationals, made the junior world team, but I was still fourth on the board. And most people, after winning or making a world team, would almost think like they made it, right? But even as making a world team, I never even felt like I made it because, number one, I wasn't even first on the board. I didn't even have a Hatch leader shirt yet. Number two, I was on platform 4. They had a hierarchy at the gym. Platform 1 was the best dude, right? And at that time, that was Blair Lebrano and Buster Bourgeois, who were older than me, making senior world teams and Olympic teams, right? And so it was super humbling where most children would have probably let that get to their head and maybe felt like they didn't have to work that hard or that they already made it. Me still being humbled on that 4th platform, still 4th on the board, made me realize I'm not even close to there yet because people were talking about how great I was and all the good things I was doing. And I would be like, but Blair's snatching almost 100 pounds more than me. Like, I suck right now. Like, and this is at my gym in Baton Rouge. Like, and so I think that's what always really helped push you. And by the time I actually, quote unquote, did make it, I was number 1 on the board. At that point, I'm like 24 years old and kind of had to, at that point, I was mature enough to be able to know the work ethic and what it takes to get to the top and what it takes to remain at the top.
Dude, I love that. To me, the way I'm picturing it, because I've never been involved in that type of environment, the way I'm picturing it is that the carrot was always right there in front of you. You know what I mean? And that's a strong motivator, but I think based on mindset, that can go one of two ways. Have you seen people that always have the carrot in front of them that eventually just give up because they don't have the mentality that they can ever get to it? And I love, the reason I'm bringing this up is because I love the fact that Coach Hatch did that to you. You're 14, 15 years old, and you're working out in the same gym 3 platforms over from a guy that's competing in the Olympics. So he's doing that on purpose, right? He's not segregating the class by age. He's taking 15-year-old kids and showing them, if you keep doing this at 25, you're going to be an Olympian. I think that's a really good strategy, but I also think that sometimes it can backfire and it'll wash people out.
Yeah, it did. We had some really great ones leave exactly for that reason. But in Coach Hatch's mind, Coach Hatch would never chase them down or anything like that. If you left and you didn't have it, there's another kid waiting next that'll take your spot.
Yeah, if you don't want to be a winner.
What did it do? People are not understanding the conversation and the story that's happening right now because it's hard to fathom it and look from, because you don't maybe know the inner workings. You talk about an Olympic caliber lifter that was on 2 teams, and he's talking about other Olympic lifters that are in the same building in the same city. That's a very, very hard thing to even have in the same building at one time. And y'all were all from here,
correct?
Right? What did that do as a younger athlete to see that kind of hard work ethic and caliber of athleticism like in front of you constantly?
Yeah, I guess we didn't even realize it, I guess, because we were just so immersed in it, right? But like looking back, the dynasty that he had created at that gym and the caliber of athletes that were in there at that time, to look back, I guess when you're in it, you don't realize how great this system was. But here's another thing about that. Not only did they have these other Olympians in there training alongside me, but you had athletes like Warwick Dunn on the platform next to you. You had these NFL running backs that were in there, and Coach Hatch treated every single one the same. Me at 14 years old, he would spend as much time with me as he did with Warwick, as he did with Blair, with Buster, with all these Brandon Bass, who was a high caliber NBA player, Garrett Temple, Big Baby Davis. all these top NFL, NBA, MLB guys were training all next to you, and he treated every single one the same, no matter if you were making millions that year or me, little sophomore in high school. Every single one was treated the exact same. I remember him telling Warwick Dunn to take his earrings out one day. He's telling a man that makes millions and millions of dollars a year, you're not allowed in my facility with earrings in your ears. And what did Warwick do? Warwick immediately took him out and apologized to Coach Hatch because out of the respect for Coach and what he does. So there was no favorites in the gym. He treated us all the same.
And I imagine, like you said, you're taking, as a coach, a strength and conditioning coach for one of the best facilities in Baton Rouge and in the state, I imagine you're taking some of those nuggets, like you said, and developing it in your own style.
100%. One example is I train an NFL running back right now, Dontrell Hilliard.
I remember him.
He plays with the Titans. I've been training him, since Red Stick. And he comes in, I run a middle school group every afternoon, Monday through Friday, 5 to 6 p.m. at Catholic High. And that's the time that he comes and trains. And so you're in the exact same situation Coach Hatch did to me. I have this guy who's making millions of dollars a year as an NFL running back. He's lifting with the middle school group of kids who are 10, 11, 12 years old. And I treat those kids the same as I treat him. And those kids see him as a friend. They go up to him. Hey, Dontrell, I picked you up in fantasy football this year. Great job, whatever. And Dontrell loves it. And so, I'm instilling a lot of that. And I see why Coach did it on purpose, right? Because those kids get to emulate what they see from him. They get to see the hard work that he puts in at the high caliber athlete that he is. And so they try to also put in that same hard work. Just like Coach Hatch, when I was 14 or 15 years old, I'm seeing all these guys working their butts off for 2 or 3 hours a day. And I'm like, that's what it takes to be great. And so I kind of do that same thing over with my little group over at Catholic High.
See, I look at it totally different than the way Matt just thought about it. And that's just, I love human traits because I'm listening to him talk. But for me, the way I'm looking at it from my end is that it's the breaker of chains when it comes to humanistic traits in life, because sometimes these NFL running backs and these people, they get put in this idol superstar status, but it brings them back to this is a human breathing the same air as me. He works hard and he's very good at what he does, but it lets kids know that this is just a guy working really hard. His status gets him a higher paycheck and he's really good at what he does. But I don't know. I love bringing people back down where they're just in the same grind, the same field, just grinding.
Yeah, and those guys prefer that. I also train Clyde Edwards-Elaire a lot during the offseason. Same way. He would rather be treated like a normal high school or middle school kid. He doesn't want any extra respect or he doesn't want the red carpet pulled out for him. He wants to be treated like everybody else because in the end, he's super talented and he worked hard to get to where he is, but everybody has the ability to work just as hard as him, and it doesn't necessarily matter where you end up, but it's a matter of the lessons learned from the hard work that you put in.
Dude, I absolutely love that because it folded perfectly right back into the entire premise of this show. You know what I mean? We talk about, whenever we started the show, we talked about the 1%ers, and everybody has a podcast, wants to talk to the 1%ers, but there's another 10% of the population that just goes out there and grinds and grinds and grinds. We have to understand that not everybody is going to be not everybody is going to be a world-class athlete, right? They're not. But everybody has the opportunity to do it, and if they'll put the work in, their chances are exponentially better than if they don't put the work in. And what you guys do, I have a ton of respect for, and I have a lot of respect for the guys that are willing to come back and kind of take themselves off the pedestal to come back and work out with you at Catholic High School. You know what I mean? All right, at Catholic. That takes a mentality in itself, right? That's a lot of humility and being humble that these guys are displaying to come back and work out at Catholic. And it's because they know you're a great coach, but some of those guys might say, well, no, I'm a superstar. I'm not going to work out with a bunch of middle school kids. I'm going to go work out with the team or whatever. But the fact that they're willing to do that says a lot about them. But it just, you guys keeping these stars in front of these kids shows them that if you put in the work and you're willing to go that extra step and go that extra mile, you have the opportunity to be successful. And I absolutely love that.
Where was one of the pivotal moments in the younger years that like maybe failure just like punched you right in the face and you were, just give me, I like to tap in because we talk about like the hard work and the success, but like with the success is like living in the failures too, right? Like learning from them. But where's the time that you stuck out that might have been a pivot for you?
Yeah. So I had made 3 junior world teams, and the way it works is junior worlds is if you're 20 or under, right? So I made 3 junior world teams, and then it was my time to move up to senior worlds, which is the big boys, right? To make a true world team. And it's very difficult for a 20-year-old to immediately make that jump onto the senior worlds. But I was, at that point, getting a little cocky. I had just graduated high school. I had felt like I was the man in weightlifting. I was moving up the platforms at Coach Hatch's. And yeah, getting a little arrogant and cocky, right? And so the week that I was going to go travel to the senior nationals, which was going to be my opportunity to make my first senior world team. My first time, I'm no longer a junior. I've moved up in the age group, right? So the week of nationals, Coach Hatch had to go do something. He couldn't be at the gym. And at this point, I'm already attending LSU. And he said, okay, just go get your workout in at LSU. I said, okay, Coach. So I contact Coach Tommy Moffitt, and I go into the weight room at LSU, and they had the football team in there. And so me being the cocky me, we were supposed to squat, but I was only supposed to squat like 50% that day, right? Because it's the deload or the period before competition where you're supposed to let your body rest. Well, I start doing some squatting, and the whole football team starts coming around me and like, oh man, look at this little kid, blah, blah, blah. And then of course I start stacking on plates, right? And I end up squatting like, I don't know, 600 pounds or something like that. And all the football players are all yelling, cheering. They can't believe this little kid is in here doing all this. And so then, I go home and I go to the gym the next day, not thinking anything. And I don't realize this, but Coach Moffitt had called up Coach Hatch and it's like, hey, Coach, man, it was great seeing Matt at the gym today. Man, he squatted 600 pounds. And Coach Hatch said, he did what? But hold on. So Coach Hatch doesn't tell me anything. So we go to nationals, okay? God, man, y'all gonna love this story. We go to nationals. It's my first senior nationals, right? I'm ready to showcase that I can be on the senior world team. And I'm warming up, and he keeps telling me, man, Matt, your legs look so strong today. And I'm like, yeah, Coach, I feel pretty good. He's like, oh, man, but I'm really strong today. And I said, okay, Coach, yeah, I feel good. He's like, they're so strong, we're going to move your opener on snatch. I was like, okay, Coach. And he moves my opener to my best snatch ever, to what I'm going to open with. And you're not supposed to do that. Like, you're supposed to get an easy one in, and then another one, and then try to go for a record. And I'm not second guessing him. I'm just like, okay, Coach, yeah, put on a new PR for my opening attempt. And so I go out there and I bomb out. And he pulls me aside, and he made me bomb out on purpose because I went to LSU and didn't follow his directions. I traveled halfway across the United States. He made me bomb out on purpose by putting a weight too heavy for me to lift, to teach me a lesson and to humble me about when he tells me what to do, to follow him 100%. And I remember I'm 20, 21 years old. I'm balling in the hallway, and he's getting into me hard halfway across the United States. And he basically said, I'll see you on Monday. Don't ever let that happen again. And you want to talk about a moment where I realized I'm not in control and I need to follow everything he says. That was the turning point in my career where I got humbled, and from that day on, I would go train at LSU and I would do exactly like it was written on paper. I don't care who was in there. I don't care what happened. From that day on, I did exactly to the T everything he said and never went against it.
Katie Benton Thompson is your local trusted realtor. Born and bred in real estate as a third-generation realtor, she deals with developments from lots and to houses. Katie was raised building the parish of Livingston. Her family roots have grown this parish for the last 30 years. This environment has educated Katie in all areas of real estate. I can tell you from personal experience, Katie Benton Thompson is a hustler in every way. She is constantly digging her heels in to give her clients the best buying or selling experience she can. Give Mandy Benton Realty Group a call and ask for Katie Benton Thompson at 225-953-0800. 0677.
Whenever you're 23, 22 years old, you think you got it figured out. Like, that starts when you're like 18, right? You start getting cocky and then by the time you're 22, 23, like, you're probably outperforming a lot of people in a lot of areas. And that is such a pivotal moment, because from that point, you can either get humbled or have somebody humble you like Coach Hatch did to you, or you can continue thinking you're the greatest thing on earth and probably never improve much.
Yeah, it was a turning point. At that point, I didn't know if I wanted to go back to the gym. Like, my first feeling was, I don't know, like, F this dude. Like, he's going to do that to me. But then, like, it didn't take me. I mean, I think I bombed out on a Friday. By Monday afternoon, I was back like a lost puppy dog back at that gym, ready to go back to work.
So what drove you back, though?
That he was right.
You just understood he was right.
Ultimately, he was right. I shouldn't have been in LSU squatting those heavy weights.
Do you think a lot of people take feedback like that and don't look for the constructive nature of it?
100%, especially in today's world where everybody wins and everybody's given a trophy or a ring. People think that they're owed it, right? But that taught me that I'm not owed anything in this life.
That's a very powerful lesson to learn. And how do you think we get that more prevalent in the sports world or in life in general? Like, how do we do that?
Good question. We had talked about this earlier, before the podcast. I think in general, I think it comes down to the culture of what you're trying to build at your facility. So at my facility, we have a really good culture at Catholic High, and it's not all about winning. It's about putting in the hard work and being successful people after football or baseball, or whatever it may be. But I think ultimately it comes down to family. I think the family, the parents, the guardians are the ones who have to really instill what life is really about. And it's not all, everybody wins a title, everybody wins a medal. I think family and your parents have to tell you the real truth of how life is. And if your parents don't, and they baby you your whole life, you're gonna think that everything is owed to you, and you're gonna get humbled really quickly. At some point in your life, you're gonna get humbled really quickly.
I love that, and I'm learning some of this stuff kind of on the fly. Really, I think my true personal development journey probably started, 2 or 3 years ago, when I really started getting serious about bettering myself and not just kind of going with the flow. Since then, it took me a while. Chase tried to get me into CrossFit a couple of months ago. It didn't really stick. I've tried it in the past. It didn't really stick. I think I was just not in the right spot. So I found a gym now that I really enjoyed. I'm kind of folding into that. And I recently, a month or two ago, started in jiu-jitsu. And what I've learned through those two things is that individual sports probably do more for people than team sports. And the reason I say that is because whenever I started in jiu-jitsu, I was strong. I mean, I was probably stronger than most of the people in the gym, just physically stronger than most of the people in the gym. And a lot of them told me that, like, the first time we rolled, they're like, dude, you're strong. Like, and that made me feel good, but it doesn't matter how strong you are. You go out on that mat and you get destroyed, like, by dudes that are 140 pounds. I got the shit kicked out of me by a girl last week. You know what I mean? And that's humbling. But I'm enjoying the experience of being humbled like that, because I think it's doing more for me mentally to realize that if I want to get better at this, if I truly want to get better at it, the only way to do that is to be consistent and put in the work. And with team sports, I feel like you kind of have a cop-out in team sports. Like, if the team loses, you can always look at somebody and say, oh, well, you didn't throw enough touchdowns, or, you dropped that, you fumbled the ball or whatever.
But I think it comes back to, even in that, because I'm trying to balance my kids between individual sports and team sports so they understand both sides.
They're both definitely important.
But I think it still comes back to parents.
Oh, for sure.
Right? Coming back to the people beyond a coach, that's, their impression on a child and athlete is huge. But just as more important is the parents. Like, if you're telling your kid those things, when Bryn lost she won with Matt when we had gone to, we went to Disney that year. And she, even in her little baby years she was like, yeah, I won. And then she got beat the next year, and she was devastated. And I coddled her, and then I also told her, this is the best thing that could happen to you in your little age right now.
Yeah.
And she's gone back and forth. She's lost or won, lost, won, lost. And I actually, every year I say it, the year she lose, I love it. Meaning like the year the year on the back end of that, her training is so dialed in, and she's
so much more focused.
So focused. And those are lessons, like he said, that she's going to take in whatever sport she does as she gets older.
Yeah, look, and I'm not saying there's no value in team sports. That's not what I'm saying at all.
Oh,
because
no, I know.
I think I'm trying to think of how I want to formulate this. I think the really good thing about team sports is it gives you an opportunity to really practice your leadership skills. So if you're a high performer in an individual sport and you've learned some of these lessons about working hard, and you've learned some of the lessons, that you teach to your student athletes, or some of the lessons that Coach Moffitt taught to you, Coach Hatch taught to you, you can take those life lessons that you're being taught at an individual level and stick them on a team level, and it teaches you how to interact with other people and how to try to emulate what your coaches have taught you to pull the best out of other people and really become a leader on a team, and then start working on creating culture and all the things that are going to lead you to be successful later in life. You can do that as a teenager or as a young adult through individual sports and through team sports. So I'm not saying there's no value in that.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. Bryn has started volleyball the last 2 years, and
you're teaching her to be a leader on the volleyball team.
I'm watching her develop into that, and it's great to see as a parent, and just sitting on the sideline. It's great to see some of the attributes you try to put into your kids start to like flourish and show proof.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you something, Matt, because these names keep popping up, and maybe a lot of viewers don't understand it, but it's where something I've always wanted to ask you. We talk about you're an Olympian. You trained under Gayle Hatch. We're talking about Tommy Moffitt, one of the best strength and conditioning coaches in football for such a long period of time, and still is. You do realize that that's the path you're on, right? You're following the footsteps in different ways, right? You're creating your own brands, and you're doing other things that are a little different on the path. Are you enjoying those moments? Are you sitting in it? How some people don't realize that you're in those moments, and then you get to the end, you're like, oh wow, I look back and it was great. Are you cognizant through this, to know that that's where you're headed?
Yes and no. I think what was really interesting when I retired in 2012, Coach Hatch was known not only as an Olympic weightlifting coach, but as a strength coach. And he was a mentor to some of these top strength coaches all around the country, including Coach Moffitt, Scott Cochran, who's been at Alabama and won, I think, 5 national championships. So my pathway was to be a strength coach. That's what I was supposed to be. And retiring in 2012, I could have picked whatever university I wanted to go to, if it was be an assistant under Coach Moffitt or be an assistant under Cochran, and I could have basically chose my destiny because that's what I was meant to do, right? But I felt like that was too easy. I felt like that was just kind of being given to me because of the pedigree of what I accomplished and being part of the coaching tree under Coach Hatch. So at that time, I said, you know what? Everybody's kind of proving Coach Hatch's methodology in these sports such as football, baseball, basketball. I was like, but nobody's ever tried to do it within the sport of CrossFit. And so that was the challenge for me in 2013 after retiring was, can I take what is super successful in all these other sports and can I adapt it for a sport that is unlike any other sport? Because you have to train so many modalities. And to be honest with you, the first 2 years, I got extremely humbled because what I did was I tried to train these CrossFitters like football players. I tried to train them like baseball players. I tried to train them the same way Coach Moffitt would train them. And I realized that I need to start doing the X's and O's, but really come down to what is the methodology and why did Coach Hatch program these X's and O's for these football players, baseball players, basketball players. And then that's when I truly became, I felt like I became a coach. When now I can't just take a cookie cutter program that he taught me. I have to truly understand why the program works the way it works. And so with that, that's when I kind of not felt like I made it, but I felt super proud of myself because CrossFit wasn't handed to me. Coach Hatch could have easily handed me an assistant job at a university, but CrossFit was something that I had to take upon myself and take his methodology and create champions. And this year we had the number 2 guy in the world, Roman Krinikov, at the CrossFit Games. We had a team win the 2017 CrossFit Games. So I guess you're right. I'm living in the moment, but I'm not satisfied. And I don't think you'll ever be satisfied because life is about mastery of experiences, whether it's jiu-jitsu, right? You're trying to master that experience. There's so much you can learn. Olympic weightlifting is a mastery of experiences. You're trying to master the art of a snatch or a clean or a jerk, and you'll never feel like you can master it. You always feel like there's some small technical thing that you can improve. People would be like, man, your technique is so good on snatch. And I'd be like, no, it's not. I got all these things I still need to improve on it, right? Because I'm trying to master it, right? I'm trying to master that experience. And that's what keeps us alive and keeps us motivated, is because if we choose something that's easy to master, you're going to get bored. But if you choose something that is extremely difficult to master, you're going to want to keep coming back and wanting to work hard to master that experience. Like you're now bitten by the jiu-jitsu bug, right? And you get very humbled because you can't master those experiences yet. You can't master what these other guys have. And that belt system, right? And even the guys that are whipping your ass, imagine them against a black belt, right? They would get humbled even more quickly, right? And it's just because they have mastered those experiences. So I feel life in general is about mastery of experiences. And if you choose experiences that are too easy to master, you're going to get bored and not motivated and maybe even depressed. But if you choose things that are hard to master in life and you're constantly improving, that's what makes you feel successful. So with that being said, yes, like I do appreciate and know that I've kind of, I guess, in a way made it. But I am not even close to mastering my experiences yet, and I still have a long way to go. So to also answer you, yes, I'm still just kind of living in it because I'm still not satisfied because there's so much more for me to master.
Dude, I love the outlook on that because that's different from anything we've heard. It's similar, but it's so different because, we talk about, is success an endpoint? Is it a series of hits along a road, or is it a feeling? I think that's kind of what we've always talked about. And I think there's 2 trains of thoughts on this, and I really kind of want to dig into this. There's people that think that you have to hit goals and you have to win. I'm one of them. I'll self-admit that. Like, if I'm not hitting goals and like accumulating wins, I believe that like success over the long term is about accumulating wins. But you're talking about mastering an experience, and that conflicts with what I think, and it's helping me grow in that if you're, I guess you're still doing the same thing. Like you're still accumulating little wins, but you're picking something that's not easy to do, intentionally putting yourself in a difficult situation, and then just steadily and constantly focusing on and working towards grinding to that goal. That's really.
I used to shy away from that mindset.
I did too. I do now.
No, what do you mean about doing hard things?
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm like I almost like my brain's different. It's weird because Matt's talking about like how he's done this over this 17, 18, 19 year period of time, and mine was not like that. Even in the military, I wasn't like that. I didn't go choose the hardest path. I had some difficult paths that I chose in the military, but I could have capitalized.
Yeah.
In a lot better ways when I was in, but now like the path is the hard choice. Like I know that most of the times, like I know that that's the path, and like there's no second guessing it anymore. There's no like I'm gonna go take the back seat because this shit is about to be really hard.
Yeah,
right?
Look, and I'm learning these lessons. I'm learning them. I really am. Like I told you, this self-improvement journey is 2 to 3 years old, and I'm learning these things. And what I think is really good is that I've identified what a lot of the problem is. And for me, it's ego. Like I want to be the best at everything. And you saw that in the CrossFit gym. I know you did. So like we went into Red Stick, and I've never done CrossFit before. I'm in what I thought was great shape, right? Because I'm fresh off of deployment. Lost like 40 pounds on deployment, work my ass off for 7 days a week for a whole year, right? And I go in there and I'm like, I'm gonna show out and I'm gonna whoop these dudes' ass that have been doing CrossFit for 10 or 15 years. And I remember I jumped on a rower. It was like the first day we went in there, and I'm pulling on the rower, and as soon as I jump off the rower, I was the first one off the rower, and I was like, oh yeah, like it's on, baby. And I go into the next exercise, which I think was a snatch or a clean and jerk, or just a clean. I think it was just clean. So I start doing hang cleans, and like 5 or 6 reps in, I'm gassed, done, like laying on the floor, dying, and everybody obviously passed me up, and I don't even know if I ended up finishing the workout, but for me, it's ego driven, and I'm really trying to find ways to work on that, which is why I think jiu-jitsu has been so good for me, because I do want to be the best, but I've picked something that's very difficult to master, and I'm going into it with a mindset that I learned at the CrossFit gym. Like, you're not going to be the best in here. Accept that and move forward with it. And I think that's making me not only a better athlete, but a better human. You know what I mean? And I spoke to some kids last night at church. I was asked to talk to the teen youth, and I told them that. I said, you have to have some humility about you and understand that you're not going to be the best person in the room at everything. And that's been a difficult lesson for me to learn, because I think my entire life I've been rewarded for being the best at things. You know what I mean? So whenever I was in school, I got really good grades, and I was always rewarded for being the best. And, that has really, I think, developed some habits that have been really tough for me to break in adulthood.
Yeah. It's funny that every page you turn, it can be a new lesson. And that's what CrossFit did for me in 2011. And it does for a lot. But I want to talk about you chose not to go the easy route, the give me, because you felt maybe it's a piggyback, or it's like you wanted to forge your own. So you start plugging and playing, and it's not going that well, right? Wow. and I know why, because I've been on the other side of it and see why. But so it's not going well. But then you said you had that like aha moment. It's when you became the architect. You started to take it apart and saying, why are we doing it this way? Why did Coach Hatch have these systems, and what was the purpose and intent? So then you started orchestrating and building your own programming. But then, and I know this about you, and that's why I wanted to bring this out. I know we're towards the end, but you built a process, and you put yourself with the system. You built a system with people that were experts in their system too, right? So you surrounded yourself with a team that they were experts in other areas, and you were the expert in, probably more than one area of that, but you surrounded yourself with these people and you built these systems. And it's the same thing that you're doing at Catholic, and it's the same thing you're going to do with Moffitt. You're building systems. You addicted to that?
Yes.
I knew it.
Yeah, I hate to put it this way. I love the building process of something, and then after it's built, I get bored. It's like Legos. You buy a new Lego system or whatever. I will stay up all night until that Lego is completely built. It's almost obsessive. But then after it's built, what do you do with it? It's just there, and it's kind of working and functioning. And so that's why I'm starting a new company, the Moffitt Method, because I constantly need to build something and build systems. I'm addicted. You're 100% right. I am addicted to the building of the systems. And then, I hate to say it, after the system is built, I get kind of bored, and I'm looking to go build something else.
I love it, though. I mean, but you're leading in everything that you're doing. Your system might have a couple kinks, and then you work that out, and then you get that well oiled. But the systems you're building, it's in planning good human character traits, strength, life lessons. So it's like you're not building a computer system that just employees run well and everything is, the bills are paid. Your systems build people and better people each day.
Right. And like the premise of this new company with Coach Moffitt, we're doing online strength conditioning for high schools and small colleges, where essentially we're a remote strength coach for that high school or college. And when me and Coach Moffitt came up with this idea. The idea is that we just don't want to write programs for these schools. We want to educate those coaches on what strength and conditioning is, because it's the old parable with Jesus. You can teach a man, you can feed a man, right, for a day, or you can teach him to fish, right? And so our goal is not just to deliver programs, but to teach and educate people what it is to be a strength coach, right? Even though these guys aren't strength coaches, we want them to be educated on our systems and why we do things the way we do them. Because here's the thing. If we were to just give them a template and workouts for their kids, they're going to put it on the board and they're just going to go sit in their office, which goes against everything that I talked about earlier. We're in the eye of the storm. I'm out there pounding the platforms. So I expect those coaches to be out there pounding the platforms. But how, if they don't know what they're doing, they're not educated enough, and all they did was just handed a workout template and then go put it up on the board and sit in their office or sit on their computer, that program's not going to be successful. And I know that, because you're not going to get the buy-in from the kids. There's not going to be confidence in them. They're just going to be like, oh, here's another workout he puts on the board. But if that coach can speak at a very high level about why they're doing the things that they're doing, he's out there actively coaching them on their snatches and cleans and their technique work, actively coaching them on their A skips, B skips, and how to run, proper running mechanics and whatever, then those kids are going to be like, holy cow, since we've been on this program, like, coach is more motivated, he actually knows what he's talking about, then they're going to get this level of confidence in the program that they're getting, and then they'll be successful. So I know that as a company. If I was just to write workouts and give them workouts, my company will fail. But if I can teach people how to be coaches, then it's more than just a template. I've trained somebody to be a coach, which will then exceed confidence onto their team.
It's amazing, man.
I love it. It's that train the trainer mentality. Like we talked about it a while ago. That's when you know that you've taken a step, right? You've gone from training the students or the athlete, and now you're training the people that train the athletes. That's a step, it's a progression. And that's awesome, man. It's really, really been good. And there was like 3 or 4 other things that I wanted to talk about, and we're knocking on this hour mark, but it's been awesome.
I want to, if y'all get to the point where y'all are releasing certifications, obviously since we're in the same place, man, please let me know, because I'll come sit for the weekend and sit 36 hours and to listen to some of the minds that I know from you and Coach Moffitt and all that. So I know that's probably already in the works, but
it's in the works. We have 2 being set up for the beginning of January in northern Alabama and southern Alabama, and then that's kind of how we're going to bring the awareness about the program to people, is through these kind of like seminars and talks that'll be free to high school coaches, and we're going to kind of make our way throughout the United States, let them know who we are and what we do, and get an appreciation from them, and then hopefully they'll want to purchase our product because of
I don't ever have aspirations of a high school coach, but I want my mind to be further tickled by the strength and conditioning bug. I'll always have it now.
Yep, dude, it's been awesome. I need to get some actual coaching too. So,
Matt, plug yourself and your companies and that you want to plug, and just put them out to the world if they want to give you a look or read a little bit about you. Or
yeah, of course, I'm the head strength coach at Catholic High School, so you can follow Catholic High in all sports. So whether it's swimming, basketball, golf, bowling, I'm the strength coach for all sports. And just like I said earlier, I don't treat football players just because they won the last 2 state championships. I don't treat them any different than I do my bowlers or any other athletes, just like Coach Hatch would. So try to follow us through Catholic High's athletics, because I'm involved in all aspects of those athletics. BruteStrengthTraining.com is my CrossFit company, where we do online remote coaching for CrossFit. And then the new company, TheMoffittMethod.fit, MOFFITT, TheMoffittMethod.fit is a new company. So if you had a child or a student at a high school that maybe their strength and conditioning isn't up to par, and that's where they're struggling, we'd love to be able to talk to their coach and just have some sit-down conversations, and maybe even if I can help them for free by giving some advice, right? Even if they don't purchase our product, like I said before, that company is more about education than it is about selling products, and if we treat it that way, the sales will come naturally.
Man, I knew this was going to be a good one.
Yeah, man. Like
it really did unpack a lot of things that a lot of our previous guests just don't touch on, and it's just because it's just a different lane and genre of life.
The premise remains the same.
Always, man. Always. Matt, thank you for coming on, man. I'm going to remember this one for sure. I need to get over there and get Bryn to come see you because she talks about you weekly, if not all the time. So
yeah, Matt, again, definitely appreciate it, bro. I really love doing this because we get to sit and just pick the brain of guys like you that are crushing the game, 2 or 3 times a week, and it's such a valuable learning experience for us, and that's really, we do this to get content out in the world and let other people learn these lessons, but we do this for us.
We're selfish.
This is for us. And you've definitely thrown some things out there that we're going to take, that I'm going to personally take forward. So I appreciate you, being a mentor to me for this last hour, and hopefully becoming a good friend.
Yeah, my pleasure, guys. Thank y'all.
All right, man. Well, that's it, guys. That's another episode of Hustle Makes It Happen, the podcast. Remember, until next time, keep your head down, keep your eye on the ball. Hustle makes it happen, but most importantly, have fun. Later.